Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum, dear students. I hope all of you are fine and keeping yourself safe and healthy in this situation and also enjoying the online teaching and exam system. Well, that's a part of life, and all say that you have to live with it. So we pray to Almighty Allah that may He protect us all, our loved ones, our dear ones, our family members, this whole country, this world, and we are able to come out of it and resume our normal life activities. With that, we move on to today's topic, which is on vasodilators. So, basically, in the continuation of the lectures on cardiovascular pharmacology, this drug group comes under the domain of antihypertensive drug, but it has got many other uses apart from hypertension, which we'll be discussing in this lecture. So what are basically vasodilators? As the name is indicating, vasodilators means that they are going to dilate the blood vessels. How? By acting directly on the vascular smooth muscles through non-autonomic mechanisms. They reduce the contractility of actin myosin filaments, which is the primary step in the mechanism of action. Mechanism of action. So, vasodilators are basically causing the relaxation of the vascular smooth muscle, leading to decrease in peripheral vascular resistance, and therefore the blood pressure is also decreased. But it's not as simple as it appears to be. Whenever there is decrease in the blood pressure in the body, what happens? There is a natural mechanism to restore the decrease in blood pressure. So I hope you all are familiar with that as you have done your physiology. So compensatory mechanisms are evoked, and that are sympathetic system is evoked, and there is renin angiotensin aldosterone system is stimulated. So whenever there is decrease in blood pressure because of vasodilators, in return these systems are evoked, and to avoid the sympathetic system stimulated effects and the salt and water retention because of the renin angiotensin aldosterone system, vasodilators cannot be given alone because they have minimal efficacy when given alone. So you always have to give vasodilators with two main drug groups. Think about them. Which drug groups are you going to give? These are basically diuretics and beta blockers. So this is a diagram which is showing the uh, same thing which I just told you. When you give the vasodilator drugs, there is decrease in the systemic vascular resistance, leading to decreased arterial blood pressure. Okay, and there is decreased sodium and renal sodium excretion. And what happens? There is going to be sodium retention, increased plasma volume, which leads to increased arterial pressure. ठीक है. Similarly, when arterial blood pressure is decreased, there is increased sympathetic nervous system outflow. ठीक है, जिसकी वजह से क्या होगा? ये compensatory mechanism जो evoke हुए, there is going to be increased cardiac contractility, there is going to be increased heart rate and increased renin system. ठीक है, तो अल्टीमेटली क्या हो रहा है कि आप वेजोडाइलेटर ड्रग्स जब भी दे रहे हो तो अल्टीमेटली क्या हो रहा है कि देयर इज अगेन rise in blood pressure as well as sodium and water retention. So we can block this step by giving diuretics at this level, and at this level it is going to decrease the sodium and water retention, and similarly if we give beta blocker it is going to decrease the sympathetic mediated compensatory mechanism. So vasodilators are given as a combo of. So if you talk about compensatory responses, what happens whenever there is a patient with hypertension, there is initial treatment with vasodilators is going to cause decrease in blood pressure. That is for a few days. What happens next? As I told you before, there is going to be increased sympathetic outflow as a compensatory mechanism, and the other compensatory mechanism is increase in the renin release. Sympathetic outflow is going to increase further tachycardia, and renin release, renin angiotensin aldosterone system is going to cause salt and water retention. Both of these effects are going to lead to increased blood pressure in return. So, to control the effect of vasodilators, we give along two drug groups, which are beta blockers, and you can also give adrenergic neuron blockers. And the other drug group is diuretics and ACE inhibitors. So, this is the combination of drugs which can be given with vasodilators to control the blood pressure. So, now we move on to the classification of vasodilators. We can classify them according to their mechanism of action. Number one is nitric oxide donors, in which we have hydralazine, sodium nitroprusside, and nitrates. And the B group is potassium channel openers, in which we have minoxidil diazoxide, nicorandil, and chromocambolane. Other group is calcium channel blockers like nifedipine, amlodipine, and nimodipine. This you have already covered in the previous lecture. So these are also vasodilators. यहाँ पे जब हम कैल्शियम चैनल की बात करेंगे तो आपको डॉक्टर मरियम पराचा ने पढ़ाया होगा कि there are two types of calcium channel blockers, one acting on the blood vessels and the others are acting on the heart. So we'll be discussing about these in the uh, blood vessels, which are nifedipine, amlodipine, and nimodipine, whereas those acting on the heart were diltiazem. And the other drug group is dopamine 1 agonist, which is phenoldiprem. So vasodilators can also be classified according to their route of administration. And as you can see clearly, in which there are mentioned two routes of administration, oral and parenteral. And our drug hydralazine, minoxidil, both are given orally, whereas sodium nitroprusside, diazoxide, and phenoldiprem. These three drugs are given through parenteral route. So if we classify the vasodilators according to its direct or indirect mechanism, broadly it is direct acting, which we are going to discuss. Amongst that, there is potassium channel activators and calcium channel blockers. Other direct acting are those which increase the cytoplasmic cyclic nucleotide concentration, that is cyclic AMP or GMP. Number one is increasing adenyl cyclase activity, in which we have prostacyclin, and then we have beta 2 agonist, and we have adenosine. Then there are other drug group which increases the guanylyl cyclase activity. Amongst that, there is nitrates, and most important is glycerol thionitrate, which is an anti-anginal drug, and nitroprusside. Then we have inhibitors of phosphodiesterase activity, in which we have sildenafil, and then we have natriuretic peptide analogs. Rest are indirectly acting vasodilators. So think about indirectly acting, which are also causing vasodilation, but through other mechanisms like those drugs which interfere with sympathetic nervous system, like alpha 1 blockers, alpha 2 agonists, and dopamine D1 receptor agonists like phenoldiprem. So these are causing vasodilatation by indirect mechanisms. Then we have drugs that block the renin-angiotensin system, in which you have already covered the AC inhibitors, renin inhibitors, and angiotensin receptor blockers. So they are inhibiting, like, if angiotensin receptor blockers are causing vasodilation, this is through the blockade of angiotensin receptor, or AC inhibitors are inhibiting the enzyme ACE. So they are not acting directly on the blood vessels, but through indirect mechanisms. So they are also called vasodilators. Then some other indirectly acting drugs are which are going to stimulate the release of NO or EDRF. NO is nitric oxide, as I already told you, in which there comes acetylcholine and bradykinin. But in today's lecture, we'll be focusing on the direct acting vasodilators. And as the name is indicating, vasodilators, so they are those which are going to affect various types of blood vessels. So they are classified on this basis as arteriolar dilators, then we have venular dilators, and then we have those which affect both arteries and venous system. Amongst the arteriolar, we have hydralazine, minoxidil, and diazoxide. And amongst the venodilators, we have nitroglycerin. This is a very important drug, and it will be studied in detail when we will go through anti-anginal drugs. Then we have those drugs which are affecting both the arteriolar and venous system, amongst which is nitroprusside. So if we move on to the first drug of vasodilator, that is hydralazine, It's a hydrazine derivative and it's a nitric oxide donor. And as the name is indicating, कि nitric oxide donor, it means that when the nitric oxide is released, which is also called endothelium derived relaxing factor, the name indicates that it is going to dilate the blood vessels, and most prominently its action is on the arterioles. ठीक है? And selective decrease in vascular resistance in coronaries, cerebral and renal blood vessels. So if we have a look towards the pharmacokinetics of hydralazine, it is given orally, well absorbed, but its bioavailability is only 25%, and it is rapidly metabolized in the liver by acetylation. So students, please recall acetylation is what type of biotransformation reaction. So this is one of your question which is you have to answer it for today's assignment. Acetylation is what type of biotransformation reaction, and give three examples. Half-life is only 1.5 to 3 hours, however duration of action is up to 12 hours. Then tachyphylaxis 2, its antihypertensive effect develops. So another question is, okay, what do you mean by the term tachyphylaxis, and name three drugs which show tachyphylaxis, right? So if you can see at the top, at the lower bottom right side, there is in risk of toxicity is increased in slow acetylators, okay, and rapid acetylators they require higher doses. So basically, the term pharmacogenetics, which were discussed to you in detail when we were discussing journal pharmacology, and amongst that, it was said that every individual has a variable response to a drug because of its different genetic makeup. ठीक है? तो जो hydralazine है, some people they are slow acetylators, so they in their liver they metabolize the drug slowly. The acetylation process is slow. So when the drug is not cleared properly, it's slowly, so there is increased risk of toxicity. So one of its side effect is lupus-like syndrome, which is called SLE, ठीक है, systemic lupus erythematosus. So that is seen more with the slow acetylators. Whereas there are some individuals which can acetylate the drug more quickly. So they are called rapid acetylators, and they require higher doses because the dose of the drug is metabolized very fast because they have a genetic difference from other populations, so they have to give the drug at a more higher dose to achieve the same response. So this is unique about its pharmacokinetics. Now if we move on to its pharmacological action, since it is relaxing the vascular smooth muscle by releasing the nitric oxide, which is also called endothelium derived relaxing factor, which we have already done in when we discussed about the effect of acetylcholine on the blood vessels. Then it was one of the effects that acetylcholine causes vasodilation, and it is not through any receptor mediated, but it is indirect effect through the release of EDRF or nitric oxide. So it decreases the total peripheral resistance and blood pressure. So indications. And one thing more, there are many complaints from your teachers, respective teachers, that BDS students are still not able to get these terminologies. What do you mean by indication? What do you mean by the term rationale for the use of? Or contraindication? So, bache, this is not the time. You are almost finishing your pharmacology. Half of the syllabus is finished. So, contraindication means the condition in which you don't give the drug. Indication means clinical uses. You have to write the disease or clinical condition in which the drug is indicated. And the rationale for the use means that you are being asked, for example, why beta blockers are given in hypertension. You can ask this question in such a way, what is the rationale for the use of beta blockers in hypertension? You have to explain why. You don't have to write the whole history about beta blockers or its classification. You have to justify how beta blockers are helpful in treating hypertension. Just that particular mode of action of that drug in that particular disease is called rationale for the use. Okay? As you know, beta blockers is used in as antihypertensive. We'll be discussing about angina. They're also used in angina, in cardiac failure, and everything. So you have to memorize the rationale for the use in different conditions. You don't have to write one answer for the whole डिजीजेस, हर डिजीज के लिए उसका अपना एक मोड ऑफ एक्शन है, दैट इज कॉल्ड रैशनल है, ठीक है. So indication mean uses, and in amongst the uses there is severe hypertension, and obviously you have to combine it with diuretics and beta blockers, because you don't have to give the drug alone as it causes compensatory mechanisms and becomes ineffective after initial response. Heart failure in combination with nitrates, that we'll be discussing in detail when we'll do the heart failure. And we'll be compiling all these drugs when we'll be doing the final lecture on antihypertensive drugs. This is the drug of choice in hypertension in pregnancy. It's a very important MCQ, used parenterally in hypertensive emergencies as well. So, student, the third question for today's lecture is that name one other drug which is used in pregnancy and hypertension. Okay, you have already done that. So brainstorm or recall and try to find out the answer. So regarding the adverse effects of hydroxyzine, there is headache, flushing, nausea, anorexia, palpitations, and sweating, as well as there is reflex tachycardia, salt and water retention. This reflex tachycardia, salt and water retention is seen with all the vasodilators, because until or unless these drugs are given alone, you will have to face the side effects, because these are the adverse effects because of its compensatory mechanisms. It also causes peripheral neuropathy and drug fever, and it can precipitate angina in patients with cardiovascular disease, but you will be discussing that with when you will discuss angina. Then this is the side effect about which I was just talking. Lupus erythematosus like syndrome, which is called SLE like syndrome. Okay? It's an autoimmune disorder, but it can also be drug induced, but it is reversible. Once the drug is stopped, the effect of the disease also finishes. And it is comprising of arthralgia, myalgia, skin rash, and fever. Thank you very much, class. And complete your assignment and submit it to your WhatsApp group. And see you tomorrow with the part 2. And before coming to the lecture, kindly go through your books so that you know the concept of vasodilators. So we'll move on to the next drugs and finish the topic. Thank you very much.